Okay, the Anunnakis. Let's talk a bit about them, about what you know, what we know, not what we don't know, what we know. NINURTA. NINURTA, god of agriculture, hunting, and war. NINURTA was the Anunnaki son of Enlil. Enlil could be Jehovah or isn't, or his father who is Jehovah, and his uncle is Lucifer and Ki. Okay, his half uncle is Lucifer, and this family doesn't go along together one with another. And by the way, his sister Nana had a case in a field if he had only half uncle in Ki, and even her own grandfather Anu. So he is I think the oldest son, the oldest child of Enlil. Enlil is the god, his father is the god of air. This one is god of agriculture, hunting, and war. NINURTA, Sumerian NINURTA, possible meaning Lord of Barley, also known as Ningarsu, Sumerian Ningarsu, meaning Lord of Garsu, is an ancient Mesopotamian god associated with farming, healing, hunting, law, scribes, and war, who once first worshipped in early Sumer. In the earliest records, he is a god of agriculture and healing, who cures humans of sicknesses and releases them from the power of demons. And he is the one who castrated Lucifer, his uncle. So these diamonds might as well be his uncle's legions, okay, Luciferians. In later times, as Mesopotamian grew more militarized, he became a warrior deity, though he retained many of his early agricultural attributes. He was regarded as the son of the chief god Enlil. Chief god, so he is the Jehovah, the Elohim, the god of the Jews. And his main cult center in Sumer was the Eshumesha. I don't know. I'm pronouncing it correct or not. Eshumesha temple in Nippur. Ningarsu was honored by King Gudea of Lagash, who rebuilt Ningarsu's temple in Lagash. Later, NINURTA became beloved by the Assyrians as a formidable warrior. The Assyrian king Ashurnasirpal II ruled between this time BC, built a massive temple for him at Kalu, which became his most important cult center from then on. In the epic poem Logali, NINURTA slays the demon Asag, using his talking mace Sharuch, and used stone to build the Tigris and Euphrates River to make them useful for irrigation. In a poem sometimes referred to as the Sumerian Georgica, NINURTA provides agricultural advice to farmers. In an Akkadian myth, he was the champion of the gods against the Anzu bird after it stole the tablet of destinies from his father Enlil. And in a myth that is alluded to in many works but never fully preserved, he killed a group of warriors known as the Slain Heroes. His major symbols were a perched bird and a plow, because his father also portrayed himself as a bird and is the god of air. NINURTA may have been the inspiration for the figure of Nimrod, a mighty hunter who is mentioned in association with Kalu in the book of Genesis. Conversely, and more conventionally, the mythological NINURTA may have been inspired by a historical person, such as Ninus. He may also be mentioned in the second book of Kings under the name Nisroch in the 19th century. Assyrian stone reliefs of winged eagle-headed figures from the temple of NINURTA at Kalu were commonly, but erroneously, identified as Nisrochs and they appear in works of fantasy literature from the time period. Worship. NINURTA was worshipped in Mesopotamia as early as the middle of the 3rd millennium BC by the ancient Sumerians and is one of the earliest attested deities in the region. His main cult center was the Shumesha temple in the Sumerian city-state of Nippur, where he was worshipped as the god of agriculture and the son of the chief god Enlil, though they may have originally been separate deities. In historical times, the god Ningersu, who was worshipped in the Sumerian state of Gersu, was always identified as a local form of NINURTA. According to the Assyriologists Jeremy Black and Anthony Green, the two gods' personalities are closely intertwined. As the city-state of Gersu declined in importance, Nigsu became increasingly known as NINURTA. He became primarily characterized by the aggressive war-like aspect of his natural for these creatures. In later times, NINURTA's reputation as a fierce warrior made him immensely popular among the Assyrians. In the late 2nd millennium BC, Assyrian kings frequently held names which included the name of NINURTA, such as Tukulti NINURTA, the trusted one of NINURTA. NINURTA Apaliku, NINURTA is the head of Enlil's temples in Kor. And NINURTA Tukulti Ashu, NINURTA is the god Asuh, his trusted one. Tukulti NINURTA 1 declares in one inscription that he hunts at the command of the god NINURTA who loves me. Hunts not for me. Similarly, Adad Nirari II claimed NINURTA in Assur in support of his reign, declaring his destruction of the enemy as moral justification for his right to rule. In the 9th century BC, when Ashurnasirpal II moved the capital of the Assyrian Empire to Kalu, the first temple he built there was one dedicated to NINURTA. Restoration of what is seat of Kalu. Okay, no, I mean considered Syrian. The walls of the temple were decorated with stone relief carvings, including one of NINURTA slaying the Anzu bird. Ashurnasirpal II's son Shalmaneser III completed the NINURTA ziggurat at Kalu and dedicated stone relief of himself to the god. On the carving, Shalmaneser III boasts of his military exploits and credit all his victory to NINURTA, declaring that without NINURTA aid, none of them would have been possible. When Adad Nirari dedicated a new endowment of the temple of Assur, and Assur the world sealed both the seal of Assur and the seal of NINURTA. After the capital of Assyria was moved away from Kalu, NINURTA's importance and the pantheon began to decline. Sargon II favored Nabu, the god of the scribes, over NINURTA. Nonetheless, NINURTA still remained an important deity. Even after the kings of Assyria left Kalu, the inhabitants of the former capital continued to venerate NINURTA, who they called NINURTA residing in Kalu. Legal document from the city recorded that those who violated their oaths were required to place 2 minas of silver and 1 mina of gold in the lap of NINURTA residing in Kalu. The last attested example of this close dates to 669 BC, the last year of the reign of King Esarhaddon, ruled by the 681-669 BC. The temple of NINURTA at Kalu flourished until the end of the Assyrian Empire, hiring the poor and destitute as employees. As always, slavery. The main cultic personnel were Sagu priest and a chief singer, who were supported by a cook, steward, and a porter. In the late 7th century BC, the temple staff witnessed legal documents along with the staff of the temple of Nabu at Ezida. The two temples shared a careful official iconography. They were the bad gods, just like Osiris, Horus. Codorus, the Gacit period, 1600 BC, a plough is captioned as symbol of Nigersu. The plough also appear in New Assyrian art, possibly as a symbol of NINURTA. A passionate bird is also used as a symbol of NINURTA during the New Assyrian period. One speculative hypothesis holds that the winged disc originally symbolized NINURTA during the 19th century BC, but was later transferred to Assur and the sun god Shamash. This idea is based on some early representation in which the god on the winged disc appears to have the tail of a bird. Most scholars have rejected this suggestion as unfounded. No. It's really them. The bad symbol is them. Astronomers of the 18th 17th century BC identified NINURTA or Public Zag on the constellation Sagittarius. Alternately, so he reminded me of that creature, the half man, the centaur, half horse, half man. Alternatively, others identified him with the star Sirius, so they are from Sirius after all. It was known in the Akkadian and Sukudu, meaning arrow. The constellation of Canis Major, which is the dog star, of which Sirius is the most visible star, was known as the Castu, meaning bow, after the bow and arrow NINURTA was believed to carry, and the mule pin NINURTA is consistently identified with Mercury. His planet is Mercury, also is Saturn. Okay. As it reads, Mercury, whose name is NINURTA, travels the same path the moon travels. In Babylonian time, NINURTA was also associated with the planet Saturn, and Mercury later became associated with Nabu family. He is his consort Bau. Bau in certain language means bad smell. NINURTA was believed to be the son of Enlil. In Lugali, his mother is identified as the goddess Nima, who he names Nihursag, who was also the consort of Enki. So he shared this female with Lucifer, Enki also, called the devil. But in Angim Dima, his mother is listed the goddess Ninleo. Under the name NINURTA, his wife is usually the goddess Gula. Gula in some languages means sugar. But as in Nigersu, his wife is the goddess Bau, meaning smell. Gula was the goddess of healing and medicine, and she was sometimes alternately said to be the wife of the god Pabil Sag, or the mineral vegetation god Abu. Bau was worshipped almost exclusively in Lagash, and was sometimes alternately identified as the wife of the god Zababa. She and Negersu were believed to have two sons, the goddess Igalima and Sulzagana. Bau also had 7 daughters, but Negersu was not claimed to be their father. As the son of Enlil, NINURTA's siblings include Nana, Negal, Ninazu, Embilulu, and sometimes Inanna. Mythology. Second one to the goddess Inanna, Ninurta probably appears in more myths than any other Mesopotamian deities. In the Sumerian poem Lugal-e, also known as Ninurta exploits, a demon known as a Zag has been causing sickening sea and poisoning the rivers. Ninurta confronts a Zag who is protected by a number of stony warriors. Ninurta slays a Zag in his arms, could be Enki, his only uncle. Then Ninurta organizes the world. Using the stones from the warriors he had defeated to build the mountains, not the world, the Middle East and Africa. I'm so sorry, not the world, not the whole wild world, rather Africa and Middle East, which he designed so that the streams, lakes and rivers all flow into the Tigris and Euphrates. Are the whole world in Tigris and Euphrates? I don't think so. The Tigris and Euphrates rivers make them useful for irrigation and agriculture. Ninurta's mother, Nima, descends from heaven to congratulate her son on his victory. Ninurta dedicates the mountain of stone to her and renames her Nihursag, meaning Lady of the Mountain. Finally, Ninurta returns home to Nippur, where he is celebrated as a hero. This myth combines Ninurta's role as a warrior deity with his role as an agricultural deity. The title Lugal-e means "O King" and comes from the poem opening phrase in the original Sumerian. Ninurta's exploit is a modern title assigned to it by scholars. The poem was eventually translated into Akkadian after Sumerian became regarded as too difficult to understand. A companion work to the Lugal-e is Angim Dima, or Ninurta's return to Nippur, which describes Ninurta's return to Nippur after slaying a Zag. It contains a little narrative and is mostly a praise piece, describing Ninurta in larger-than-life terms and comparing him to the god En. Agim-dima is believed to have originally been written Sumerian during the 3rd dynasty of Ur, or the early Old Babylonian period, 1830 to 1531 BC, but the oldest surviving texts of it date to Old Babylonian period. Numerous later versions of the text also survived. It was translated into Akkadian during the Middle Babylonian period, 1600 to 1055 BC. Anzu myth. Ninurta with his thunderbolts pursue Anzu. In the Old, Middle, and Late Babylonian myth of Anzu and the Tablet of Destinies, the Anzu is a giant monstrous bird. Enlil gives Anzu a position as the guardian of his sanctuary. But Anzu betrays Enlil and steals the Tablet of Destinies, a sacred clay tablet belonging to Enlil that grants him his authority. While Enlil is preparing for his bath, the rivers dry up and the gods are stripped of their powers. The gods sent Adad, Gera, and Shara to defeat the Anzu, but all of them fail. Finally, the god Ea proposes, Ea is Enki, proposes that the gods should send Ninurta, Enlil's son. Ninurta confronts the Anzu and shoots it with his arrows, but the Tablet of Destinies has the power to reverse time, and the Anzu uses this power to make Ninurta's arrows fall apart in midair and revert to their original components. Very, very interesting, huh? But who sent this bird? The Orions? Ninurta calls upon the south wind for aid. which rips the Anzu's wing off. The god Dagon announces NINURTA's victory in the assembly of the gods, and as a reward, NINURTA is granted a prominent seat on the council. And Leo sends the messenger god Berdu to request NINURTA to return the tablet of destinies. Is it the same as the tree of life? NINURTA's reply to Berdu is fragmentary, but it's possible he may initially refuse to return the tablet. In the end, however, NINURTA does return the tablet of destinies to his father. The story was particularly popular among scholars of the Syrian royal court. The myth of NINURTA and the turtle recorded in WET 612 is a fragment of what was originally a much longer literary composition. In it, after defeating the Anzu, NINURTA is honored by Enki and Eridu, which is near Orion. Enki senses his thoughts and creates a giant turtle, which he releases behind NINURTA and which bites the hero's ankle. As they struggle, the turtle digs a pit with its claws, which both of them fall into. Enki gloats over NINURTA's defeat. The end of the story is missing. The last illegible portion of the account is a lamentation from NINURTA's mother, Nima, who seems to be considered to find a substitute for her son. How can find a substitute? We can never substitute a son that has gone or a daughter. And I believe that this being who fall into this Creta, whatever, fall into this pit, could be the one that is found near the river Euphrates there, that mount. Aho! Remember that awful sound there might be them who is still there. According to Charles Pengillas and his account, Enki is clearly intended as the hero, and his successful foiling of NINURTA's plot to seize power for himself is intended as a demonstration of Enki's supreme wisdom and cunning. Other myths. Sumerian cylinder, same pressure that it has shown in C. In NINURTA's journey to Eridu, NINURTA leaves the Iko temple in Nippur and travels to the Abizu and Eridu, led by an unnamed guide. In Eridu, NINURTA sits assembly with the gods En and Enki. En is Anu, is his uncle and his grandfather, and Enki gives him the domain for life. The poem ends with NINURTA returning to Nippur. The account probably deals with a journey in which NINURTA's cult statue was transported from one city to another, and the guide is the person carrying the cult statue. This story closely resembles the other Sumerian myth of Inanna and Enki, in which the goddess Inanna journeys to Eridu and receives the mist from Enki. In a poem known as the Sumerian Georgica, written sometime between 1700 and 1500 BC, NINURTA delivers detailed advice on agricultural matters, including how to plant, tend, and harvest crops, how to prepare fields for planting, and even how to drive birds away from the crops. The poem covers nearly every aspect of farm life throughout the course of the year. I still believe this being is the same one called Veracuza, who went to the Mayas and Incas, the Mayas and Aztecs, to show them about agriculture, and he was enslaved there by the very Incas who follow Enki. The Mayas and the Aztec follows Enki. All that people there follows Enki. that shamanic people. The myth of the slave hero is alluded to in many texts, but is never preserved in full. In this myth, NINURTA must fight a variety of opponents. Black and green describe these opponents as bizarre minor deities, including the six-headed wild ram, the palm tree king, palm tree. Oh my God! No wonder I have a channel there about going around looking for spirit, and I see so many trees moving, walking right past me at night at 11:30 to 1 a.m. The palm tree king, the seven-headed serpent, and the Kuliana, the mermaid, the fishy woman. Some of these foes are inanimate objects, such as the Magellan boat, which carries the souls of the dead to the underworld. That's why we have that's movie about sci-fi movie like Aladdin, Saladin, and what's his name? Sinbad. Very old movies. I was a little kid in the 60s when I've seen that movies. So dead to the underworld and the strong copper, which represents a metal that was conceived as precious. This story of successive trials and victories may have been the source for the Greek legend of the 12 labors of Heracles. Later influence Nimrod. In the late 17th century, Kalu was captured by foreigner invaders. Despite this, NINURTA was never completely forgotten. Many scholars agree that NINURTA was probably the inspiration for the biblical figure Nimrod, mentioned in Genesis as a mighty hunter, though it is still not entirely clear how the name NINURTA became Nimrod in Hebrew. The two figures bear mostly the same functions and attributes, and NINURTA is currently regarded as the most plausible etymology for Nimrod's name. Eventually, the ruins of the city of Kalu itself became known in Arabic as Namrud because of its association with NINURTA. Later in the Old Testament, in both two kings, Assyria is reported to have been murdered by his sons Adramelech. The king Sennacherib of Assyria is reported to have been murdered by his son Adramelech and Sharezer in the temple of Nisroch, which is most likely a scribal error from Nimrod. This hypothetical error would result from the Hebrew letter Mem being replaced with Samek and the letter Dalet being replaced with Kaf. Due to obvious visual similarities of the letters involved and the fact that no Assyrian deity by the name of Nisroch has ever been attested, most scholars consider this error to be the most likely explanation for the name. If Nisroch is NINURTA, this would make NINURTA's temple at Kalu the most likely location of Sennacherib's murder. Other scholars have attempted to identify Nisroch as Nuskul, the Assyrian god of fire. Hence, while the Baga rejects all suggested identifications as linguistically implausible. Although the book of Genesis itself portrays Nimrod positively as the first king after the flood of Noah and a builder of cities, the Greek Septuagint translation of the Hebrew Bible refers to him as a giant, and mistranslates the Hebrew words meaning before Yahweh as in opposition against God. Because of this, Nimrod became envisioned as the archetypal idolater. Early works of Jewish Midrash described by the 4th century AD philosopher Philo in his persecuted in his Questiones portrayed Nimrod as the instigator of the building of the Tower of Babel, who persecuted the Jewish patriarch Abraham, who refused to participate in the project. Saint Augustine of Hippo refers to Nimrod in his book The Seed of God as a deceiver, oppressor, and the destroyer of earth-born creatures. Yeah, a hunter. What respect of a hunter? In modernity, stone relief carving of an eagle-headed genius from the temple of NINURTA at Kalyu. Such depictions were widely but erroneously defined as NINURTA in the 19th century. Yeah, he's a part of his father is a part of him. In the 6th century, Nisroch became seen as a demon. The Dutch demonologist Johann Weyer listed Nisroch in his Pseudo-Monarchia Daimonon as the chief cook of hell. Nisroch appeared in book 7 of John Milton's epic poem Paradise Lost. Wow, false published in 1667 as one of Satan's demons. Nisroch, who is described as a frowning and wearing beaten armor, calls it into question Satan's argument that the fight between the angels and demons is equal, objecting that they, as demons, can feel pain which will break their morale. According to Milton scholar Roy Flanagan, Milton may have chosen to portray Nisroch as a timid because he had consulted the Hebrew dictionary of C. Stephanus, which defined the name Nisroch as a flight of or delicate temptation. In the 1840s, the British archaeologist Austen Harry Layard uncovered numerous stone carvings of winged eagle-headed genie at Kalyu. Remembering the biblical story of Sennacherib's mother, Layard mistakenly identified these figures as Nisroch. Such carvings continued to be known as Nisroch in popular literature throughout the remaining portion of the 19th century. In editing Nesbitt's classic 1906 children's novel, The Story of the Amulet, the child protagonists summon an eagle-headed Nisroch to guide them. Nisroch opens a portal and advises them, "Walk forward without fear," and asks, "Is there aught else that the servant of the great name can do for those who speak that name?" Some modern works on Ari's history still repeat the old misidentification, but Near Eastern scholars now generally refer to the Nisroch figure as a griffin demon. Could it be a copy, or he died and became a monster demon? After all, he said that the turtle, his uncle, caused him fall into a pit by a turtle because he castrated his son, his uncle, half uncle, and because Enkai sleep with his daughter Nana. In 2016, which some says would be Lilith, not Lilith, as Inanna Ishtar, okay? In 2016, during its brief conquest of the region, the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant, Israel demolished the Ashurnasirpal II ziggurat of NINURTA at Kalyu. This act was in line with Israel's long-standing policy of destroy ancient ruins, which it deemed incompatible with its militant interpretation of Islam. That is is a mother of history. This is a disservice to history. How are you gonna find history if they go around destroying the history? That is stupid. According to a statement from the American Schools of Oriental Research, a source, Cultural Heritage Initiatives, Israel must have destroyed the temple to use its destruction for future propaganda. This is what the Anunaki does. They go around destroying the the former um, templates of a place, so that they would construct a first one and say that one was the first, was the original one, and that they have created that first. Do you understand what I mean? How it works like this, and to demoralize the local population. In March 2022, archaeologists announced the discovery of a 5,000-year-old cultic area filled with more than 300 broken ceremonial ceramic cups, bowls, jars, animal bones, and ritual processions dedicated to Nigursu at the site of Gursu. One of the remains was a duck-shaped bronze figurine with eyes made from bark, which is thought to be dedicated to Nanshe. So that's all for NINURTA, the Anunnaki son of Enlil and father of Inanna Ishtar, and the nephew, half nephew of Lucifer Enki.